We're going to be talking about how to drive inbound traffic or leads via LinkedIn. We're going to be using 6 different techniques on actually driving that traffic, but the primary and underlying strategy here is essentially creating webhooks into our profile. And each of these webhooks may, while it has a small effect, together they're going to have a really big impact on the number of profile views. And on our next call, 2 weeks from today, we're actually going to talk about how to convert those profile views. But for today's discussion, we'll be focusing on these 6 different techniques on driving inbound traffic to our profile. And the 6 main areas that we're going to be covering, and we're going to jump around a little bit from one to the next, but we want to put it in a logical order. But we're going to be focusing on strategic connections, also on joining the right types of groups and how to leverage those groups, following the right individuals and companies, interactions, messaging, and profile optimization. Now, there's going to be a whole other section, like I mentioned before, about profile optimization on our next call, but there are some aspects that we need to discuss on today's call in order to drive optimal traffic. Now, one of the big strategies in terms of driving traffic to our profile is actually connecting to the right individuals. Now, when it comes to LinkedIn connections, there's 2 types of aspects of the connections that we want to make sure that we have. One is both relevant and related. Polaris, as Patrick Oborn likes to talk about, is LinkedIn network like a radio station, and that's essentially what it is. And LinkedIn will allow you to connect to about 30,000 individuals. Now, most of you are probably thinking that they would never actually want to do that, but if you're in sales, that's something that would be a great asset for you and your company. And so connecting with as many individuals as possible would create a huge sales funnel, and each of those connections essentially represents a webhook into your profile that we talked about earlier. Now, you don't want to reach the full 30,000 because then you won't be able to add new connections. So you want to make sure that you top out around 29,000. But the process of adding connections needs to be slow, and you don't want to do it too fast or else you'll raise some flags within LinkedIn. Also, it's important, on the next call we'll be talking about how to get connections to actually accept you. A lot of that has to do with your title, and we'll talk about how to optimize that shortly. But in terms of connections, it needs to be both relevant. Relevant means these are people that you would like to prospect to. These are the companies that you're interested in selling to. But it also needs to be relevant. Relevancy is basically the connections that you're working with need to be related or connected to each other. And the best way to accomplish that is actually going into the advanced LinkedIn search. So when you're looking at the people, you go to the filter section. And in the top section, there's a field that says connections out. This is where you're going to put in one of your prospects that you're already connected to or an existing client. And what this will do is you'll hit the second degree filter on the left-hand side of the page, and this will show you all the results of the connections that are second-degree connections of you, but are first-degree connections of the individual that you've put into the profile. And the reason why this is important is because in order to drive inbound traffic to your LinkedIn profile, you need to have common connections with your prospects. The more common connections you have, the more likely you're going to be able to rank higher within the search engine algorithm of LinkedIn. It also creates a human network. And so as you work within these prospects and the fact that they're connected to each other, know each other, it creates a multiplicity effect where you're able to create basically referrals and lots of synergies because you're talking to individuals who know each other. And so you not only want to leverage the fact that you have a human or a LinkedIn network algorithm, but also the human network aspect of this. And so combined, this really creates a great sales funnel for you. So just to kind of recap this whole strategy in terms of common connections, relevant connections, what you're trying to do here is connect to the right prospects, but make sure that the prospects are also connected to each other. By doing so, your profile will rank higher within the LinkedIn search algorithm because of the common connections that you have within these individuals. In addition, LinkedIn also weighs heavily on LinkedIn groups. So if you share interest groups with other individuals within LinkedIn, it'll also help LinkedIn to rank your profile higher because of those commonality factors that you have. There's really 5 main advantages when it comes to LinkedIn groups. The one we already talked about, the first one, which is increasing your search engine ranking by connecting and joining to groups that your prospects are already members of. The second of which is finding prospects. So if you can work with prospects who have unique interests with you, whether it's running or creating your own personal radio station, these types of commonalities will help solidify relationships and open doors that normally wouldn't be available to you. The other thing is it creates those webhooks that we talked about. So anytime you join a group or follow or connect to somebody, it essentially creates a link back to your LinkedIn profile. It creates a path. And that's what we're trying to create. And a lot of these paths, like I mentioned in the very beginning, won't have a huge impact in and of themselves. But if they add them up over time, they'll have a significant impact. On average, every webhook that you have going back to your profile will generate about 1 click per year. But if you have 365 connections or thousands, you'll start driving dozens of clicks on your profile on a daily basis. It also allows you to contact other members of the same group, and so this is a great messaging tool as well, which allows you to get away with not having to purchase in-mails, or if you ran out of in-mails, you could use this as another means of contacting the prospects that you're trying to work with. So that's it for groups. But another area that you want to work with in terms of ranking within search engine, within LinkedIn, is actually your name. Now, this is the factor that LinkedIn weighs most heavily, is the content that shows up in your name. And so if you have a long last name, you can split this up. You can either still keep your first and last name in the separate fields, or you can put the first and last name in the first field, but you can add industry key terms or words that would help you, that you want to get ranked for. And if you put those in your name fields as a tagline, you'll find that you'll rank almost always #1 for those factors. It's also the second most highest ranking field is the headline, and so you can also manipulate that and use that. There's a lot more text space for you to work within that area. But if you want to use LinkedIn's the fields that are the most heavily weighed within the algorithms of LinkedIn search engine, it's going to be the name. And so feel free to manipulate that in order to get higher search engine ranking, which then drives higher traffic to your profile. Now, all of us work with some type of vendor. We all have relationships, whether it's a lead exchange or someone that provides part of the product aspect that we're working with. But in any case, all of us have relationships within our industry. And these relationships should be highlighted within our LinkedIn profile. And by doing so, it also helps increase the inbound traffic to our profile significantly. So if you work with AT&T, for instance, as an indirect rep, or you work with Cisco or Mitel, any of these vendors, you should be highlighted in your profile, because if somebody's looking for someone within those companies, this would help you become listed on those search results if that's a filter, and again drive additional traffic back to your profile. Also, if you've reached the 29,000 or 30,000 mark on LinkedIn, you can still follow additional members. But what this does is you can follow companies, you can follow LinkedIn influencers. What this does is it allows you to create additional webhooks back to your profile. Again, each of these by itself isn't much, but together will have a significant traffic flow back to your profile. And so connecting with different groups and companies, especially the companies that you're following on, will not only allow you to share additional commonalities within your network, but will also keep you informed about changes that are taking place within those companies. And so all of the companies that you're prospecting to, you want to make sure that you're following that, you're getting your name out there, that you're engaging in a lot of their social posts. Next, you want to make sure that you spend some time interacting with different posts and articles that are showing up on that news feed. What this does is it really makes it so that your profile becomes extremely relevant to those that you're trying to prospect to. Because if you've connected with your prospects and you're engaging with them via LinkedIn, that's going to become very relevant to them as they're seeing your name come up over and over again. It also creates a great opportunity to interact and to follow up with folks, especially if they're having comments. Also, LinkedIn provides you with a great opportunity to stay connected and keep on top of events that are taking place within the lives of your connections. But one side note here, it's always a good idea to wait a few days before you actually engage on these types of alerts, because if you join the conversation when they're getting bombarded with messages and congratulations, they're just going to skip over that. Also, you want to make sure that it's customized. You don't use just the standard version of that. The whole purpose of this is to entice the individual to actually respond with like thank you or something like that. You don't want to try to sell them right off the bat, because that'll scare them away. But as long as if you can get them to engage in some type of dialogue and slowly build up the momentum to talk about selling something, you're going to have a lot more success that way. Also, on a regular basis, you want to make sure that you stay in touch with your LinkedIn network. So if you've created a large network of prospects, the messaging tool is something that you can access anytime. Although I would recommend reaching out to your prospects about every 6 weeks, not trying to sell them on anything, just checking in, talking to them, seeing if there's anything you can do for them. And this, again, will drive inbound traffic to your profile and allow you to leverage all the work that you've done so far. So you're trying to build a lot of momentum with these folks. Also, as you start driving a lot of this inbound traffic, you'll be able to see who's tracking and who's looking at your profile. And this is probably one of the better aspects of the LinkedIn Premium, is you're able to see more of who is looking at your profile. But this is where you start actively engaging with folks. And so you would use this to basically reach out and say, I noticed you were looking at my profile. Is there anything I can do for you? But proactively monitoring this page and connecting and engaging with everyone that's on your profile on a regular basis, especially as you invest all this time in driving inbound traffic, this is going to become your new sales funnel. Now, as I mentioned earlier, it's important that you have these common connections. And if you click on their profiles, what's going to happen is you're going to start to show up on their profile feed. And so they're going to start looking and seeing your name show up on a regular basis. And so every day you probably want to click on probably about 100 profiles, and that way you can show up on their profile pages and drive additional traffic and awareness to the individuals that you're trying to prospect into. Now we're going to switch gears real quick, and we're going to talk a little bit about how to associate your profile with others, because this is a great way to drive inbound traffic. And so when you look at a LinkedIn profile, you notice on the right-hand side it talks about other profiles that are highlighted or related to the profile that you're looking at. And so what's nice about this is a great permanent inbound link to your profile. And there's a few different ways that you can actually appear on this page, but mainly what you're trying to do is you're trying to gain the LinkedIn search engine algorithm that associates your profiles with others. The first of which is creating projects. A project is a nice feature within LinkedIn that allows you to basically post on other LinkedIn profiles projects that you've worked on together. And so the profiles you're trying to associate yourself with, maybe it's your competition, but what you're trying to do is create inbound links or outbound links from their profiles to your profiles. And so projects allows you to associate yourself with lots of individuals, talk about things that you've done, but it's a great way to essentially post your profile on their profile. And what that does is it drives traffic from their profile to your profile, which then solidifies the LinkedIn's algorithm to then highlight your profile within their profile. So I've said profile quite a bit, but hopefully that makes sense. The second way to actually drive traffic from other profiles to your profile, which then allows you to be highlighted within their page, is through references. And so you can talk and give people great referrals and talk about recommendations, and that will, again, put your profile permanently on theirs, and a lot of times they will return the favor, which then solidifies that algorithm even further. So again, the two methods of helping your profile be associated with other profiles is through projects and through recommendations. Now, another feature that's important, a lot of times because of all the privacy and all of these things that are developing, LinkedIn has hidden a lot of the aspects of your profile. And so you're going to want to make sure that you enable all of the different features to be shown everywhere across search engines, across LinkedIn, across people that don't know you, because what this does is it unhides your profile and makes you more visible. Now, there are some people on LinkedIn that want this information to be hidden. But if you're in the sales space, you really want to make sure that this information is as visible as possible, which is essential to driving inbound traffic to your LinkedIn profile. Now, next up, we're going to talk about personalizing your URL. Most of you have probably already done this, and the good news is you can continue to change this. But a lot of times, what I recommend here is putting in your industry keywords. So anything that you want to get ranked for, this is another factor that would help you increase your ranking not only within LinkedIn, but also within Google. And so take advantage of the fact that this is a custom URL, and you can add different industry keywords here to further increase your chances of getting hired. Now, I realize that this seems like a lot of work, but what's great is this is the perfect opportunity for like an intern like Robert De Niro. If you haven't had a chance to leverage interns or executive assistants, this is the best investment that you can make. Now, we'll talk about executive assistants and interns on a future call and how to leverage this. But just on a quick side note, the easiest way to acquire or get interns is actually just to email professors at a local college and ask them to announce the internship opportunity to their class. And since this call is recording, you really don't have to spend a lot of time training them. You can simply share a link to this via our YouTube channel and have them go to work. So hopefully this will be helpful